Hi everyone, Aaron here for Zollotech, and the iPhone 13 mini has been out for a little over 6 months and is one of the most beloved phones that Apple has ever made. If you talk to anyone that uses an iPhone 12 mini or 13 mini, they absolutely love the size, and it looks like this is going to be the last of its kind, or the last year that Apple is going to make a mini iPhone, as the iPhone 14 is rumored to basically have 2 larger sizes and 2 regular sizes. The mini is apparently going away. And so I thought we'd take a look at it after 6 months, talk about durability, battery life. My brother actually uses one of these full time, so we'll take a look at some of his battery life as well, and also talk about any issues it might have had. But the first thing is the design. The design, like I said, is something that most people that have one absolutely love. It reminds a lot of people of the iPhone 5 style phone and brings it back similar to that size, where with the last one we had was the iPhone SE first generation. So the last small phone was this SE, but instead of having just a small phone, we have a new design with new features and much better cameras and a much better display. So the squared off edges, I know a lot of people really appreciate, and the new color for 13 is this pink color. So that's why I have this one. And then also the last phone that we had, the newer color was green. So with the 12 mini and 13 mini, we only get 2 years of what most people say is their favorite phone in a long time. Now, personally, this phone is just way too small for me. However, having these squared off edges helps with holding on to it. And I really like that they're matte this year, with a matte edge around the outside edge and then glass front and back. And you may have already noticed that depending on the angle I hold this at, the back really picks up a lot of fingerprints. I wish they might have made a matte pink maybe color like we have with Sierra Blue on the Pro Max. So if we had these combinations together, the matte sides accompanied by maybe a matte back, that would be the best device, I think, for as far as fingerprint resistance and just overall feel and look. So maybe we'll see that in the future with future iPhones, but so far it looks like I said, we're not getting another mini. Now, use for the mini is one of the reasons many people like it. It's an easy to use one-handed phone. I can wrap my hands around it about 1.5 times or so, and it's easy to reach from side to side. If you have small hands, it's going to be easy to reach side to side, or maybe go into the control center. It's just really simple to use with one hand. That's probably the best thing about it. You're not losing any features that you get from the iPhone 12, you're just getting a smaller size with a slightly smaller battery. As far as overall durability, well, this phone hasn't been used 100% of the time for the past 6 months, but I did reach out to my brother, who doesn't use a screen protector or a case on his phone, to see if he had any scratches or any wear. He doesn't have any wear around the outside edge, and neither do I, and he also doesn't have any scratches or anything on the back that are visible. However, on the front there's scratches, as you can see here. So there's a few scratches at the top by the camera, and it seems to have held up well considering he's not using a screen protector or anything else. Now, of course, those scratches could be avoided if you used a screen protector, but using a screen protector or a case changes the way the phone feels overall. And with Apple Care, it covers accidental damage. So I personally don't worry about it too much, but if it's something that bothers you, of course, you could just put a screen protector on here or a case. I know a lot of people that switch between using a case or different cases just for the overall texture. But to me personally, I just like the phone without anything on it. But let me know what you use your phone with in the comments below. If you use a screen protector or a case, I'd love to hear from you there. Now, the display goes up to 800 nits of regular brightness. So it's brighter than the 12 mini, and it's super bright, especially if you're watching HDR content, where it goes up to 1200 nits of brightness. This is really helpful, especially in sunlight, and of course, if you're watching HDR quality content. So you have that option in YouTube to watch HDR videos. This is one of my HDR videos you can see here, and you can see the option up to 2160p or 4K HDR. So the display looks great, and this video is not in HDR, so it will look very bright if I turn it up. So you'll see it's already sort of blown out in the background and hard to see, and we're only at half brightness. I have to bring it down to about a quarter brightness just for you to see it somewhat normal. So that gives you an idea of how bright this display goes. If I turn it all the way up, it will just almost look white on the display. So it's really very, very bright and great to use because of that. Now, the display does use PWM, or pulse width modulation, to control brightness. Like all of Apple's OLED displays and many other OLED displays out there, it flashes the display faster and slower depending on the brightness level to bring brightness up and down. It's not something you can see with your eyes, but you can see it at 240 frames per second in slow motion. So that's something that typically doesn't bother most most people, but 1 in 10 people are bothered by it. So that's why some people really prefer maybe the iPhone SE where it had an LCD display, or the iPhone 11. But for me, it really hasn't bothered me with this generation of phones or the last generation of 12 series phones. It does seem to be a little bit better on the Pro displays, as people who have tested this seem to think that it has DC dimming where it holds the display brightness without flickering it. So that's something that you can see under slow motion where it's not flickering with the Pro display, but it is with the regular 13 mini. So that may be a cause for concern for some people, where you would typically get headaches or maybe feel a little nauseated or just have eye strain in general. One other thing to note is the notch is actually narrower, but actually deeper into the display, meaning that it protrudes further down into the display compared to the 12 mini. You can see that here, and that creates a little bit of an issue on YouTube with ultra widescreen content. So if we go into YouTube here, I'll go into one of my videos. Let me turn the brightness down as it's an HDR video also. And if we go into the video itself, we'll rotate here to landscape. You'll see on YouTube, it actually protrudes into the display a little bit more, with the 13 mini being at the top and 12 mini at the bottom. So you'll see that it can be a little bit annoying for some. However, it's only on ultra widescreen content. Now, speed and overall performance is really something you don't think about with this phone. It's just super fast all of the time. Scrolling, opening apps, maybe we go into, let's just go into Keynote for the first time. I haven't opened it on this phone. Typically, when using any app, it's just going to be fast and fluid. Really, you don't have to think about it at all. If you want to go into the camera, go back into music, switch back and forth, it seems to be plenty fast all of the time. So no issues there with speed or performance. It's only loading over Wi-Fi, so it's taking a little bit of time, but once it's loaded, it will refresh much quicker. And some of that's going to be dependent on your overall reception. Now, the reception of the phone has been pretty good for most people. I typically find that with their 5G phones, and this has millimeter wave, you can see the millimeter wave antenna. If your phone supports it, you'll have that option. And of course, you'll have 5G on this phone, as Apple has pushed that a lot with the latest couple generations of phones. 5G seems to work well. However, in talking to my brother with earlier versions of iOS 15, he actually had issues where he had to turn off overall cellular and Wi-Fi, just switch to airplane mode, turn it back off, and then it would actually work properly on cellular again. This may be a T-Mobile issue, but I had that issue with some earlier versions of iOS 15 that seemingly seem to be fixed at this point. But in the past, some of the reception has been an issue. It doesn't seem to be now, and seems to be better with these aluminum banded phones than it is with the stainless steel Pro phones for some reason. Now, as far as battery life, this has not been my main phone full-time, but it is something I've used before, so I reached out to my brother, who has a black iPhone 13 mini that he uses full-time, and asked him to send me his battery life. He's had it since day one, charges it every single night on the charger, puts it on the charger in his car that's wireless, and that's how he charges it. And so he sent me those. I have some screenshots here. He's down to 99% battery health. 80% after 2 years is normal. This is above average, so that's pretty good. And you'll see his battery life here. This was yesterday. He had 1 hour and 15 minutes of screen on time, 24 minutes of screen off time, and didn't even use 25% of his battery. Then I asked him to take a look at the day before that, or a couple days before. He had 5 hours and 44 minutes of screen on time, 4 hours and 57 minutes of screen off time, and used a little over 100%. So he's getting anywhere between 5 to 6 hours of screen on time. That typically means he charged it at some point. But he normally goes to bed not having to charge it, and will get about 5 hours of screen on time, sometimes 6 if he's lucky. And then occasionally you could use an external battery pack with it, maybe Apple's MagSafe battery pack or an Anchor battery pack, one of those to get some extended life, and it fits perfectly on these devices. So you have that option as well if you wanted it, but overall, it seems to be okay, not as great, of course, as something that's going to have more room for a larger battery. Now, overall, the cameras are great on this. You just have 2 cameras. You have a regular wide camera and an ultra wide, but you don't have that telephoto zoom. But typically, if you have enough light, you don't need it, because Apple doesn't even use it on the Pro Max phones or the Pro phones. They'll use the regular camera, and then if the light is a little bit lower or they have different lighting situations, then they'll use the telephoto zoom at 2x. So you really don't see much of a difference whatsoever. As you can see in these photos here, they look basically the same on both phones. So no concerns there. And recording video, you have 4K HDR at 60 frames per second. You can see that in your settings. So if we go down to camera, We go to 4K 30, you have 4K 30, 4K 60, and HDR video as well. So you have the option with that Dolby Vision HDR content. It looks great, and it sounds pretty good as well. So if we go to the camera, you can see we have 4K 30. We can switch to 60 frames per second or 24. And we don't have the option, though, to go to HDR. Maybe we'll have that later on instead of having to go into settings. Maybe they'll bring that with iOS 16. Hopefully we'll see some more settings improvements here, but we can enable the different video modes. If we switch to the forward-facing camera, you can see we have similar options. And if I hit record, now I'm recording from the front-facing camera of the iPhone 13 mini. So it gives you an idea of the overall audio quality from the mic compared to my studio mic, and also the visual quality. Now it's the same camera that we get on the 13 Pro and 13 Pro Max, so really there's no difference there. However, we will get better quality from the rear-facing camera. We just don't have Apple's ProRes because this isn't the Pro iPhones. But overall, it's pretty good. That brings me to, should you still buy an iPhone 13 mini in 2022? And I would say if this is the perfect size phone for you, then absolutely, I wouldn't hesitate. However, if maybe you have an iPhone 12 mini or maybe even an iPhone SE and you wanted this at a discount, I would imagine Apple will still sell these for a while to get rid of excess inventory if they still have some after the iPhone 14 comes out. So it doesn't look like we're going to get an iPhone 14 mini, so if this is the perfect size, I would highly recommend it. However, if you care most about battery life, well, the best phone out there right now is the iPhone 13 Pro Max for that. So if battery life is the most important thing, maybe get a 13 or 13 Pro Max, something along those lines, as you'll have a much larger battery. But if that doesn't matter to you and you care more about the overall size of the phone but want the best experience, then definitely pick one up. It will get future iOS support at least for 5 years based on what Apple has done before, so that brings us pretty much to iOS 20 at this point. So expect this to be supported for many, many years. So that's everything with the iPhone 13 mini. I definitely recommend it, like I said, if it's the right size for you, but for me, it's just too small, and I'll go back to using the 13 Pro Max. I really think a phone between the size of the 13 Pro and Pro Max would be perfect, but the 13 Pro Max works for me for now. But let me know what you think in the comments below. If you'd like to get your hands on this wallpaper, of course, I'll link it in the description like I normally do. And if you haven't subscribed already, please subscribe. And if you enjoyed the video, please give it a like. As always, thanks for watching. This is Aaron. I'll see you next time.